Hey folks, how the hell are you? I'm Houston.
And I'm Kaylin, and you're listening to Crime or Reason.
Alright, everybody, what is up?
What's up?
So, for this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different, something a little laxed, and it's going to be a Q&A.
Ooh, ooh.
So, true
Well,
crime.
question answer.
Yeah, true crime podcast edition. Crew crime.
Crew crime. True
So,
crime podcast.
essentially, we're just going to be asking or reading some true crime questions or true crime podcast questions relevant to what we do, and we are just going to answer them for you. It'll be pretty easy, pretty chillaxed. So let's go ahead and get started. So, Kaylin, what initially drew you to the true crime genre, and how did you become interested in specific cases?
So, I've always been interested in a lot of true crime cases, especially the big ones, like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, stuff like that. But then you already know who I'm going to bring up.
Morbid.
I started listening to Morbid, and it wasn't the first true crime podcast I listened to. I actually listened to Someone Knows Something. I listened to a lot of them, and I first started out really wanting seasons long worth on one case. And then later on it developed into continuing listening to those season longs on one case, and I really liked the disappearances and stuff like that. But then I started listening to Morbid, and the very first few episodes I listened to of Morbid were the Moore murders. And as I listened to them more, I started just really getting deep diving into it and really wanting to know more, and to the Moore murders, if you don't know about it, it's really graphic and awful what they did. And that started stemming into me finding out more information on all of the murders that they were covering, and also still listening to newer episodes of Someone Knows Something, Your Own Backyard, about Kristen Smart.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And they actually just had a development on her case and closed it. So they had a whole, and I keep up with the stuff. You know how I am. I love me a good happen in the 1980s, 1990s, and then get solved in the 2020s.
Right, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
so.
I feel that one. I think specifically for me, so I've kind of always had a fascination with serial killers and what makes them tick, and that's been a thing. I've had that for long time.
For sure, the psychology behind what's going on in that brain of theirs.
And I think mine probably stemmed just from that and watching documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries about serial killers and murders and crimes that have happened, and so because of that, it was something that I really enjoyed. And then from there, you ended up telling me about Morbid, and you were like, listen to a podcast, and I was like, I don't listen to podcasts, and guys, she hounded me on it forever.
You were listening to something else at that point. I think it was what was it that you were listening to?
Well, probably not a podcast.
Not a podcast?
I wasn't podcasting.
Well, it wasn't podcast. It was books or.
Yeah, I listen to audiobooks.
That's what it was.
Yeah, so yep. I was listening to audiobooks but for some reason I was just like, podcast, no way. Ooh, that's gross.
Yeah.
And then I was working third shift and started finally listening to Morbid, fell in love, and now I've listened to everything Ash and Elena put out.
Honestly,
yeah.
every single episode.
Not even just the episodes on that. I listened to Buffy the Rewatcher, or the Rewatcher, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I listened to Scream that they have with Caleb. I just like them as hosts.
They rock, really.
Yeah.
They have really good banter. They just have a good vibe.
Right,
but they always know how to make it serious but not serious.
Right, yeah, for sure. But some buddies of ours have a true crime podcast too.
Yep.
Chelsea and Deidre, and so over at A Million Murders, go check them out if you don't listen to them. But yeah, it's just a fun little community that we got into. So right. I think it was just a bunch of different things that kind of fell into play for us to choose this genre.
Right.
If
Well,
you will.
and when you have a job, like I started working at the post office and I was out there by myself, like just running around tossing out mail. So they're like, when you have a lot of time and
Yeah.
you're not forward facing with a bunch of people, you don't have to talk to anybody. It's nice to have something in your ear just to get the day to go by.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I agree. It's really easy. It doesn't take a lot of power.
Yep.
But I guess, which once we get into the kind of cases that we pick, I think we pick cases differently.
I agree.
I tend to pick. So I do a little bit better with intense cases than Kaylin does. So it's easier for me to research. I feel like I can look at that source material longer,
Right.
and be okay with it. And where Kaylin's isn't so on the nose with like crime, you know what I'm saying, or like the intense crime. Like Kaylin's can be one of those episodes where you can go through it. Hers is more for everybody, I feel like.
Yeah, a little more family friendly,
Yeah.
if you would.
So, and then mine are always like very intense, but I think that's just like a matter of preference.
I agree, and the amount of time we have to research.
Right, for
Because
sure.
you girls, I'm also not very good at research. I have a lot of,
Don't get too into it because that's our next question.
gotcha.
Our next question is actually about the research.
Oh, okay. I'm
And-
too organized with my research, so it takes me a long time for it. So that's one of the reasons that I don't get like too. I can't do really deep cases that have so much information because it's just so hard to get into that and it's mentally. You
Right.
have to really be in a good mental space to do that. And
Yeah, it's like on the nights when
not
you're
saying my
research.
mental's bad.
When you have to like research like more than one case at a time and you're like exhausted, you're switching back and forth and like trying to choose the lesser of two evils to like when your brain is like mush.
Right.
But that leads us into the second question, which is, can you walk us through the research process for your cases?
Do you want me to go first? Or
Yeah,
do you
go
want
ahead.
me to
You can go ahead.
Okay. So, like I was saying, my research is very intense because I have to have it laid out because I can't. So, first, I find a case. And then it takes me a while to find a case because I don't know exactly what I want to do. I know kind of in a general area what I want to do. But then, once I find the case, I go through and I find as many references and resources that I can to really deep dive into that. And then on the deep dive, I have to write it down because my brain is that way. It's like the face to hand, like we have to write it down. And then after I write it down and get everything organized the way that I want it, my notes are a mess. And so I have to go back and type it all out because if I don't do that, my whole episode is going to be just a fucking mess.
Right.
It's going to be a mess of me trying to get my thoughts put together. So they have to be laid out in front of me before I can actually pursue the whole like case.
Yeah, because you have to you write down like what you're gonna say.
I
don't
do.
you? Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah. Kaylin's very like scripted and like to the T.
Because if I don't, I'm going to be chaotic. It'll be a whole mess. I wouldn't be able to form the thoughts in my brain. I'm telling you, I say this all the time. My brain works faster than my mouth all the time. At all times, my brain is going 90 miles per hour, but my mouth is only going about 10. So.
Mine's the opposite. I definitely.
Don't we know you know how to talk?
my mouth is definitely the chaotic part on me. My brain is too.
I like the way you put that.
But yeah, so the way that I research irritates Caitlin.
Because I can't do it.
So the way that I research is I go ahead and I read my articles or I find my videos and I'll read/watch all of them once. And then I go through and have all of my resources laid out in front of me. So like if I've got like a video or a podcast that I'm listening to, I will play that while having my like 2 or 3 resources in front of me. And then I just go through and I make notes of everything. So mine won't say...
And mind you, these are cliff notes.
Yes. So mine will just have like the name of the person, like the year that they were born, just like their parents' name. It doesn't say any of that. It just has like, it'll just say like Kaylin Wetstein, you know, and then January 9th. Did I just say 9th? Your birthday's 9th. Okay. Well, I was freaking out. My cousin's is the 24th, and I almost said the 24th, and I was like, wait. And, you know, it'll say it like that.
It makes the year 1995.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And then, like, I'll just, like, put that, and then it'll put, like, I'll have, like, a date, and have, like, date of disappearance, and then I'll put, did this, and it's just, like, very listed.
Yeah.
And then that's what I bring when I do my case.
So I'm scripted. You're rattling off from your brain.
Yeah, so mine's just, like, something for me to, like, look down at and then just, like, immediately talk about, because I retain the information, I guess, differently.
I'm not an information retainer. It does not stay in my noggin. There's too much up there.
And so I can just kind of, like, talk about it. And so it irritates Caitlin a lot, because she's just, like, Caitlin will come in and she'll have, like, a 5-page script, and then I've got, like, 1 page of Cliff Notes.
Yep. The other thing is, whenever I'm doing research, I can't be doing anything else. The TV cannot be on. I won't listen to music. It does not help me focus. I have to have it quiet, and, like, that's one of the reasons it takes me so long to do, is because there's always a lot going on.
For sure, yeah. And for me, I can work in utter chaos. So I just, but with that, I feel like Caitlin's stuff ends up being a little more accurate.
Writing stuff down really helps out, I think, with that, because, like, and you stay pretty accurate to the case, but it's just that you have to, like, pull the rest of it from memory, right. Which you have a good memory, so it's like you kind of give and take.
Like, yeah, so for mine it'll be like, the shoelace was untied, and that's what my note says, and then I tell the whole story about the shoelace and, like, the prevalence and everything. Like, my brain will just, like, I'll just start spitting that out.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. I don't know if this is going to ever come up again in this, but do you think it's easier to edit your episodes or my episodes?
It's easier to edit mine because I know what I said.
Right.
I mean, even down to, like, when I cough.
Right.
And, like, I need to take something out. So
God, you have such a good memory.
Yeah, I find it easier to edit mine just because I can remember it.
Yeah.
Exactly what I did. Remember exactly where I messed up, where I didn't mess up. But it's easier to listen to yours.
Okay.
It's easier to listen to your cases than it is to listen to mine, but who likes to listen to their own voice? I think my vocal fry is so bad.
It's so hard to listen to your own voice. It really is. It maddens me whenever I hear my voice, because it's like, I don't like the way I sound. I think I sound really nasally. It's gross.
So the next question, how do you approach discussing sensitive or graphic details of a crime with your audience of the podcast? What steps do you take to ensure that you're being respectful and responsible in your reporting? I can take the one on this one.
Yeah, you take that one first.
So, I feel like as long as you're not, like, out here making fun of it, you know what I'm saying? Like, just, it's really easy to just know what's in poor taste and what's not, you know? And every once in a while, you'll kind of say something not realizing that it's in poor taste, and that's something that you catch in the edit.
Right. And you can edit it out.
Yeah.
So
because Caitlin and I,
we have a really
morbid sense of humor.
We do.
And it's so
not something everybody appreciates.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that you just kind of be cognizant of that what you're talking about is not your own shit.
Yeah, it's somebody else's life.
It's somebody else's stuff that's going on. And so as long as you're just, like, being aware of that and
being respectful of the family that we talk about.
You know, like, you never want to find yourself discussing a case and then, like, laughing during, like, an insensitive time.
Right, like you talk about somebody getting, like, chopped in half and then you're laughing about it. Like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we wouldn't.
Right.
Really.
But it's just one of those things. I think that maybe it's a little harder. I know that I was talking with, like, Chelsea and Deidre about it. I think it's a little easier for them because they're kind of way squeaky cleaner, like way more squeaky. Why can't I speak? They're way more squeaky clean than we are, so they're used to that all the time.
Yeah.
Where we're very vulgar with just how we speak in general on here, and, like,
in general in life.
It's very explicit, which, I mean, they are too, but, like, they're very, like, they're not explicit on their podcast, so I think it's, like, like engraved into them.
They go into a
Yeah.
mindset of, I'm not going to
Right.
be vulgar.
For us, we have to like make sure we're not being like,
We have to reel it in a little bit.
yeah, we're not being like, what the fuck is this shit and da da da. Like
Yeah.
when we get to those points, we have to, you know, I mean, I'll throw out a what the fuck if I'm like, I can't believe that fucking
Yeah,
happened.
what the
But
fuck?
yeah, I think it's just the matter of everybody knows what to and what not to say. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between not having a filter and just being insensitive.
Exactly.
And we don't have filters, but we're not really insensitive people.
Exactly. We care about other people
Yeah.
pretty well, I'd say.
And at the end of the day, when you're talking about the cases, you're talking about the cases. Like, obviously, we're doing this. We enjoy ourselves enough in some sort of degree to get on a podcast, which
Right.
feels very condescending and feels like very, you know, very conceited and full of yourself. But, like, it's because we're passionate about it. It's something that we enjoy doing. And
Right.
so we just kind of, like, jump on here and tell those stories. But at the end of the day, like, we're telling the stories. We're choosing cases that we're passionate about in some sort of way.
And we want to bring light to them,
Exactly.
not just, you know, tell the story flat out. Like, it really shines on the victims
For
and
sure,
their
yeah.
families, and we try to make it, the bad situations, we try and make it where you can really see how awful what really happened was, but also keep it
Right.
straightforward.
Yeah. And
That doesn't make any sense.
it does. Like, keep it straightforward in the sense that, like, it's retainable for people. Because here's the thing. And kind of going back to the research, you don't realize how dark the shit can get
Yeah.
until you're researching it. And, like, there's not filters on that research. So if we can take it in a way and take it and put it in a way where it's easier for you guys to digest, then we're accomplishing our goal of getting those cases out there without completely and totally cringing out the audience.
Yeah, right.
Because sometimes that stuff is hard to digest.
It is, for sure.
So,
Like, the way that I was... Do you remember the episode I did about the boy that was murdered by the train tracks? Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
which one was that? What was his name?
it was like the little boy that was taken by the two other, like, a little bit
Older
older,
boys.
but boys still,
So
yeah.
that case was really hard, especially because...
Bulger?
Bulger. Yep,
Oh.
Bulger. James Bulger.
James Bulger.
I think that was
Yeah.
who it was. And that case was really hard for me because I love kids. And
Yeah.
kids are, like, the whole world. Like, I don't have any yet myself, but we have nieces and nephews, and whenever I was getting into that case, it's like you just picture, like, your niece or nephew or your kiddo getting that done to them, and it's really hard
Right.
to get into that. So, like, when it comes to the really awful stuff, you just have to have a certain mindset.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way about, like, maybe, like, the Alyssa Bustamante case.
Yeah.
Getting into that because, like, obviously what she did was horrendous, but in some sort of way she was also, like, a victim until she did what she did. Like, there was a lot of failure leading up to what she did, a lot of failure of taking care of her.
Right.
And we all know those people. You know, we know people who fall in similar categories of not only the victims but the perpetrators as well.
Right.
And so that can make it hard, I feel like, for sure. How do you think the criminal justice system can be improved with handling crimes going forward? Well, I can tell you number one. We shut down and revamped the West Memphis judicial system.
Oh, I call West Memphis 3.
That's the first thing that we do. We need to target them first and get that taken care of, because whatever they're doing there is not correct.
Not correct.
Police training, detective training,
Figuring out the corruption that happens.
yeah,
The
just
long
judicial
time.
training in general. Because here's the thing, I think starting with, like, the arrest, like, the police are kind of like the first line of that, and then it goes into lawyers, and then it goes into, you know, the judicial,
Judges
yeah,
and-
like the judges, and I think that we have to really just, like, hunker down on all of them.
Yeah.
I think all of them really just kind of need better training. They almost need, like, a human resources training.
Human
Well, yeah.
resources.
Just because, like, you know, I feel like it's really easy. The big thing is you're innocent until you're proven guilty, and a lot of people aren't treated that way.
Yeah. Plus, you have the media involved too.
If we're not protecting the criminals' rights, then the people who are getting accused that are innocent also aren't achieving those rights. You know, they're not getting those rights as well, and we see that a lot. So,
as in the West Memphis 3.
Yeah, and I'll always take it back to a place of that.
Mm-hmm.
But also too, I think how with lawyers, I feel like one of the things that bothers me the most is with lawyers, like the smearing, like that bothers me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They smear victims a lot. Like, a victim could have passed, and they're, like, talking mad shit in the courtroom
in
about
the courtroom,
them.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I know that, like, you have to
defend the person.
Yeah, but it's, like, intense. It's, like
doing that in front of the family?
They dig, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then
they really dig, too, into, like, a lot of your past.
Mm-hmm. And it's very aggressive, and I feel like we need to be better. I think if you're doing it from a place of your job, that's fine. But, like, if you're doing it from a place of sheer aggression and enjoyment, that's when it gets, like, yeah. So, that's going to be my big thing. I feel like, just, like, smear campaigns, because that can really affect the public interest as well. Like, media has a really bad habit of, you know,
just taking something and running with it. One little bitty thing they can take and they can make it a huge deal. Because
we got to talk about. Let's talk about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. We all know how we felt about Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Mm-hmm. Most people were very pro Depp, very anti Heard. Mm-hmm. With that being said, while you know it proved that that was the way it should have gone, a lot of that was perpetuated by the media.
Definitely.
And I think it's important for the media to be involved. However, I don't know if they need to treat it like it's a rumor mill,
right?
Or
because
like
they can
gossip column.
They can use something and take it and twist it to a way that, you know, it doesn't sound. Yeah. It's not factual.
Yeah, and it can make it really, really hard for a lot of people to have like fair trials.
Exactly.
So. Are there any particular cases or topics within the true crime genre that you feel are often overlooked or underrepresented? Yes. Indigenous people.
Oh, yeah.
Crimes committed against the indigenous, especially indigenous women.
Which we were just talking about this the other day. And the big thing with them is they have their own set of police. Mm-hmm. And so the police outside of their, you know, what word am I looking for?
Like their community. And
their community. So the police, yes. The police outside of their community don't like that they can't really get involved with that justice system. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and we lose a lot of like light shed on that.
Yeah.
That's my big one. Like, you want to talk about a genre that's underrepresented, or not a genre, but like a topic that's underrepresented. It's indigenous people, specifically indigenous women's.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I'm trying to think of like a specific case that would be representative. I'm trying to think of something that I think hasn't been covered enough. But the thing is, whenever it comes to us, we listen to that stuff. Like, we see it so often. Yeah. So, like, me and you pay attention to that stuff. So it's not like we see a lot of stuff that people don't really talk about because they don't want to know about it.
Right.
You know.
Also, too, we don't talk enough about stalkers.
Agreed.
Stalking, like, we do talk about stalking to the point of, like, it leading to, like, murder or, like, atrocious crimes.
That happened here in Owensboro.
But we don't talk enough about stalking that maybe didn't end super badly, but, like, it's still scary.
Yes, and the really awful thing is, like, you can't... If you go to court and you're like, this person is messaging me all the time, calling me, following me to places, unless they do something, unless they hurt you, like, harmful, you can't really do anything.
Yeah, there's like
EPOs, yeah, you put out an EPO against them, but then
what's really actually stopping them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's do a couple more. What do you think are some of the psychological factors that drive people to commit violent crimes?
We do love getting into the psychology.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a whole thing like nature versus nurture.
Uh-huh.
But somebody could have a perfect childhood and then turn out to be a serial killer. So, like, I don't think there's really, when it comes to nature, I don't think that there's really anything that, there's just something wrong in the ticker, you know? When it comes to nurture, of course, we see abuse, we see, trauma, all of that type of stuff that happens to people, and that ends up turning them into what they become. But there's just a lot of mental that goes into it.
Yeah, a lot of it's mental health for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it was very downplayed.
Yeah.
For especially like long times ago, like 70s, 80s, like we saw, the uptick of serial killers in the 70s. And the mental health was not as focused on, especially as we do today. Like, it's really been shedding a lot of light on mental health here lately. There's a lot of resources people can access to help out with their mental health.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think mental health's probably the biggest. I mean, it is the biggest factor, and there's just a lot of people that, like, the signs are there, and they're either overlooked or they're in situations where there's not enough care. But, like,
right.
Also too, a lot of it I think can be nurtured as well. A lot of traits and personality is developed based on what you went through.
Right.
And like what you're used to.
During your childhood, your brain is so impressionable. So those awful things that happen to people that turn them into what they are it's huge.
Yeah, for sure. What's your hardest case that you've covered?
Probably the James Bulger. That one was rough because it's kids and it's kids killing kids, and that's awful. No matter how you cut it, it's awful.
I feel, yeah. My hardest was the Kellyanne Bates case.
Yeah.
I will always stand by that. Yeah. That's just, it's
hard to talk about, hard to listen to.
For sure. For sure. And that's going to be the hardest for me, definitely. All right, last question.
Okay.
And then we are going to let you guys go. This is a fun Q&A, so we're going to end it with this one. What do you think sets our podcast apart from others in the true crime genre, and what do you hope that listeners take away from each episode?
I think that we have a really good connection to each other.
Right.
We've known each other for so long, so like I think that you and I can banter back and forth about silly things, but then we can also really get into the nitty-gritty of cases and cover them to the best of our ability with respect to the families, with respect to, the victims. I think that we have a really good vibe. We have a good vibe.
Yeah, I think our vibe is similar to some, but different than a lot. We don't take ourselves too seriously while also taking the cases seriously.
Yeah. So,
like, we're serious when we need to be. We're not when we don't need to be. We're just two besties who are passionate about true crime, and we talk about it.
Yeah.
Period.
We talk about it on here. We talk about it not on here. It's just, there's always something going on. Like, there are cases that we haven't covered here lately and maybe they will be in the future covered, but we go back and forth, like the Idaho killings. We were on the phone so often, like, being like, guess what happened at this point in time.
Right. And on top of that, we tell you to stay healthy every show.
Yeah.
We want you to stay healthy. We tell you to stay criminal. We want you to commit crimes. No, we're just kidding. Please don't
commit crimes.
When we tell you we want you to stay criminal, it's mean we want you to stay in true crime.
Into it, not doing it.
Yeah. Into it, not get into it.
Not get into it. Yeah. Don't be on one of our episodes.
Please. So, yeah, and it's nice. We have a nice rapport, And I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of, you know, I think what makes us different than others is that no other one is me and Kaylin.
Exactly.
You know,
you can't replicate it.
It's like, that's what it is. The difference between us and others is that it's the only podcaster you're gonna get Kaylin and myself.
Exactly.
And either that's people's cup of tea or it's not.
Not to be conceited, but we're pretty awesome. So
I'm pretty awesome.
You shut your whore mouth.
No, Kaylin's pretty.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No.
Pretty and awesome.
Yeah. Something like that.
So, well, we can definitely do this again. There's a billion questions that we could possibly answer. We just did some of them. We actually got these questions from the Podquake. So Podquake, yep. 100+ catchy true crime podcast questions to ask 2024.
Ooh, updated.
Yeah, so it was updated in February.
And by the way, 2024 is going to be better. We're going to have a good year this year. I'm feeling it.
It's already been a good year.
It's been a really good year.
So I'm feeling pretty good about this year.
Yeah, I am.
I mean, I was sick for like the first part of it.
Oof,
I say that. I was like, it's been a pretty good year. My grandmother passed away. I've been sick 3 times. I thought I broke my foot again. Fell down a flight of stairs. It's been...
We made it through it, though.
Yeah.
We made it through it.
But it's going to be fun. We'll maybe do another Q&A some other time. There's
so many questions.
So many more questions.
So many more questions.
You guys send in some questions. If you guys have, like, certain questions that you want us to answer, we'd love to. We'd love to have written in questions for us to answer.
Written in.
So, other than that, have yourself a wonderful day.
Check out our merch.
Check out all of our links. Check out our link tree.
Drop us a like and review.
Go check out the new merch specifically.
Yes, the new merch.
Yep.
She real cute.
Go check us out on YouTube. We're there now. Eventually we're going to video, but we don't know when that's going to happen. That's some time away.
I don't know about that.
That's some time away.
You don't want to look at my face, I promise.
But that's me being exhausted for the day.
That's
I work first shift now, so I'm up super, super early.
Yeah.
But
homie called me at 6:30 this morning. I was like, why you calling me at 6:30 on a Saturday?
I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning, and that meant I slept in for 2.5 hours. So...
Anyway, so we hope you stay safe.
Stay healthy.
And stay
criminal. Bye, guys.